Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to EnggAdda. So today in this video we are going to discuss about the third-party API integration in Spring Boot application. So in this video we are going to discuss how to integrate or how to consume the third-party APIs in your Spring Boot application and try to make a Spring Boot API out of them. So that is what we are going to do today. So basically we are going to integrate the get, post, put and delete all four APIs, or you can say all CRUD APIs we are going to integrate and make a Spring Boot API out of them. How we are going to do it? Using the Spring Boot REST template. Okay. So everything we are going to discuss in this video. So before going to create a Spring Boot application, I just want to show you what all APIs we are going to integrate in this video. So you might already have aware about the JSON placeholder. So if you'll go to the browser and if you'll search for the JSON placeholder, this is the site where you will find all the open APIs, okay, or free APIs you can say. So from here you can use those API to integrate in your Spring Boot application. So you can see these are the resources. These are the APIs: 100 post APIs, comment APIs, album, photos, to do, and users. So let me try to open this post API. So we are going to integrate the post API in this application or in this video. So let me try to open this. So if you'll go there, you will find these are the list of post APIs. So you will find this. This is the list, and this list contains the post APIs. So in the post APIs, you have the user ID, you have the ID, you have the title, and you have the body. And how many post APIs are how many post record are there? There are 100 records in this post APIs. You can see this here above. You can see if you want to find out the post by ID, then you can hit this API. Similarly, if you want to find out the post by ID and its comment, then you can hit this API. So basically, we are going to integrate this two, the first two, which is getting all the post, getting the post by ID, and then we have the post where we can insert the post. This is the post API, and this is the put API of the post where we can try to update the post by ID, and then we have the patch and we have the delete. So basically we are going to cover the get, post, put and delete APIs of the posts. Okay. So let me try to go to the postman and try to hit those APIs first from the postman and then show you if these APIs are working fine or not. And then we'll try to create the Spring Boot application, and there we'll try to show you how to integrate these APIs and make a Spring Boot APIs out of them. And then, uh, yeah, that would be the topics of today. So let me try to go to the postman here and let me try to create one folder for the third party APIs. So just wait for a few seconds. Yeah, let's say it's a third party APIs. Okay, here let me try to create one get request, and that would be posts. So if you'll go there to the browser, you will find this. This is the get API which is finding out all the posts. So if you'll open this in a new browser or in new tab, you can see this is the API for that. So copy this, go to the postman and paste it here and then try to hit it. So you'll find all the post record here in the response. So this is the list of posts. Okay. So this API is working fine. Similarly, let me try to create the other APIs as well. So let me try to duplicate it, and it would be get post by ID. So let me try to rename it post by or posts by ID. And what would be the URL? URL is same, but we need to provide the ID at the end as a path variable. So just let me try to put it here. Let's say the ID is 1 and then hit it, and you are getting the first posts. Okay, so that means this is also working fine. Similarly, let me try to create the post, put and delete APIs as well. So just save it, and let me try to duplicate it, and let's say we are going to create the post API, which will be inserting the posts. Okay, so let me try to remove it and go to the body. So what would be the payload for us, or what would be the request for us? So if you'll go to the get post API, you will find this list of post here. So you can copy first one or any of them and go to this post API. Let me try to rename this post API to insert posts. Okay, and this would be the URL. Go to the body, go to raw, and go to text JSON, and here you have to provide the request body. Okay, so in the user ID, title, and body, you have to provide those things here, those details here. So let's say we have the 100 post. We want to insert the 101, and let's say the ID is also 101. And let me try to remove this title. Let's say title is title 101, and let's say in the body we are just putting body 101. Okay, and this is the post API. So if you are if you'll go to the browser and go to the JSON placeholder, here you can see this is the post API. So post API, how we can hit the post API? We have to go to the posts, and this is the base URL for it, right? So base URL slash posts, and this would be the post API. You have to provide the payload, and then you can hit it. So the same thing we are doing in the postman here as well. So this is the URL, and the verb, or you can say the method, is post, and this is the payload that we are providing. So just hit it here, and here you can see 201. That means your record is inserted in the what I would say, in the back end. That means that is what 201 is saying, that your record is created. Okay, but if you will try to find it by the ID, so you will not get it, because basically it is not going to insert it for us, because we don't have the access to those APIs. I think for the insertion and updation we can only read it. So if you'll find out 101, you can see you are not getting anything. 404, that means this record is not found, or the resource that is requested is not found. So we are able to insert it, we are getting the details here, but actually we are not able to insert it because we don't have the right access to those APIs. So that means it is working fine. You can see the status. So this is working fine. So the get by ID, insert is working fine. Now let me try to uh, provide the update, which is put API, and then delete one. So let me try to do it. So put, in the case of put, you have to provide the ID as well. So let's say we want to uh, yeah, update the ID 101. Let's say, let me try it and then see if it is working or not. So it is giving some error, cannot read properties of undefined reading ID. Okay, so this time let me try to put the ID as 1 and then see. So you can see we are able to update it as well, but actually we don't have the access to modify the records or insert some records. So we are getting the response, which is a pseudo response, you can say. We have only read access to the JSON placeholder. So if you'll go by the status, that means the APIs are working fine, but we are not actually able to write through those API. Okay, we can only read it. So the post by ID, insert and update, everything is working fine. So just let me try to save it and rename it to update. Okay, save it, and let me try to open a new request where we can check for the delete as well. So yeah, let me try to make it a delete, and we are just going to delete the post with id 1. Okay, let me try to remove this body, because in the delete we don't need any body or request. So just let me try to hit it. You can see the status is 200. That means this record is deleted from the list of APIs. But yeah, we don't have the access to delete or write. If you'll go to the find post by ID, you can get this post with the ID one as well. You can see this, right? It is present. So all the APIs are working fine, you can say, and we are we are ready to integrate those API in our Spring Boot APIs to see how the third party API integration is done in the Spring Boot. Okay, so let me try to delete post and then save it. So this is about the briefing of this free APIs, and these all APIs we are going to integrate in our Spring Boot application. So let me try to go to the IntelliJ and try creating one Spring Boot application here. So if you'll go, I'm using IntelliJ Ultimate version. So here only I can create a Spring Boot application. So go to the file and go to the new. If you'll go, yeah, go to the new, go to the project, and here you'll find the option of Spring Initializer. Just let me try to create one Spring Boot application here. So let's say the application name is Spring Boot, or you can say third party API integration in Spring Boot. Let me try to select this as a Maven and go next. So here I need some starter dependency. So I just going to select the Lombok and the web, because we are going to create a Spring Boot web application, and we are not using any database, right? So we are not going to include the database related dependency. So just create this application and wait for few seconds. It will try to download all the starter dependency that we have added, configure the application, and then we can use it. So load it Maven project. Let me try to close the previous one, and just let me try to open this. So here you can see it started scanning the index and downloading the dependencies. I think it is good. If we'll go to the source, go to the main, you can see we have the Java and we have the application. Now let me try to create a what I would say entity, service, okay, controller, so that we can access those APIs. So let me try to create those folder structure first, and then after that I will try to integrate those things here. Okay, so as of now I think the entity is not required, and the DAO layer is also not required. We can directly create a service interface, service implementation class, and then we can directly create the controller class. Okay, so let me try to go through that. So right click here and create a package here. Let's say the package name is post service. Let me try to put it small, and let me try to create an interface here, which would be, yeah, post service, and here we can create all the methods that we are going to implement in the post service simple class. Okay, so basically we are going to create the methods for find all the APIs, or find all the post, find the post by ID, find the or insert the post, update the post, and delete the post. So for them we are going to create the APIs here. Sorry, the methods here. So let me try to first let me try to go to the JSON placeholder, or yeah, go to this site, and you can see this is the list of posts we have. how the post is looking like. This is a list, like this API is showing a list of posts. Okay, so this is returning the list of posts, and in the list we have the posts. And how the post is looking like, it is a if you'll go, yeah, inside it, you can see this is a JSON, and this JSON contains the key value pairs like user ID and its value, like user ID and its value, ID and its value, title and its value, body and its value. So this is a JSON and it contains the key value pairs. So you can say this is a hash map. You can put it like a hash map, or the whole thing you can put it like a list of hash map, right? So this API is returning the list of hash map. Or what you can say, uh, you can create a DTO class where this contains the details of the one post. So in one post, you can see you have the user ID, you have the ID, you have the title, and you have the body. So here in the IntelliJ, you can create one entity which is containing the which can call as a post, and there would be some attributes which are mentioned here in one post, like user ID, title, and body. Or in the other way, if you want to make your application more generic, then instead creating a DTO, you can directly create a, what I would say, map or list of map. So it will be more generic. So you're not going to handle about the attributes what is there in the post. So directly you can create a hash map or map and return it. So this is what we are going to follow here. We are not going to develop any DTO because these APIs are more dynamic. Today we have the 4 attributes. In the future, let's say we have 7 attributes. So we need to go to our entity and then change those things. So if you want to make your attribute generic, then use the generic things. So every time when you are going to integrate the third party APIs, make sure you make those APIs more generic. Okay, so that whenever those third party APIs are changing, the changes are very less or minimum in your Spring Boot application. Okay, so let me try to go to the IntelliJ, and that is why I'm not creating the entity here. We are directly going to the post service interface, and then we are just directly creating the methods here. Okay, so let me try to create one method which will returning the list of map, and let's say the map is the key is string type and the value is object. Okay, and let me try to name it like get posts. Okay, and just let me try to import the map here and the list as well. So this method, what it will do, it inside this method, we are just going to call the this JSON placeholder post method, which is returning the list of posts. So you can see this post is, we can make the post as a hash map, and this API is returning the list of posts. That means this is a list of hash map. So that is why I am just creating a method which is get post, and its return type is list of map. Okay. Now let me try to create a class here. So let me try to create a package first, which would be IMPL, and inside that I'm just going to create a, uh post service implementation class. Okay, so post service IMPL. Okay, now let me try to annotate this class with @service. Now here this would be implementing the post service. Okay, so let me try to import the post service as well, and now we have to import the one method that we have created. So uh, the firstly what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one method and try to integrate it, and then try to create a controller or API for it, and then try to show you how we can create the, or we can integrate the third party API or the third party Git API first, and then one by one we'll try to create all the other APIs. like get post by id, insert post, update and delete. Everything we'll cover one by one. So what I did, first of all, I have created this post service interface. There I have defined one method, and then I have created one implementation class where we have implemented this post service and overrided the method inside the post service. Now here let me try to uh, so so this get post method should be overridden, and we have here we have to write the logics. Okay, so before going to write the logic, uh, how we are going to call the third party API. So in the starting of the video I told you that we are going to use the REST template to call the third party API. So to use the REST template you need to create a bean of that REST template here in the configuration class. So this is Spring Boot application annotation contains the configuration. So directly you can come to this class and create a bean method for the REST template. So let me try to create it. So let's say first of all let me try to create the method. So private REST template, let's say REST template return new REST template, and this is the method. And let me try to put a bean annotation here so that it's let me try to make it public. So what is happening here, we are creating an instance of the REST template, and when we are using bean method sorry bean annotation at the method level, then it is creating a object of the REST template, assigning it to the application context. So whenever you want to use this REST template object, you can directly go to that particular class and auto wire it. So the same thing we are going to do here in the post service implementation class. In this configuration class, we have created the bean, and the bean create the object of this REST template. It assigned to the Spring Boot application context, and when it is assigned to the Spring Boot application context, we can directly use this object wherever we want in the Spring Boot application. So we want that object here in the post service implementation class. So we can directly auto wire it here. So let me try to auto wire it. Private REST template. Okay. And with the help of REST template, we are going to call the exchange method. Okay. So with the help of exchange method, we are just going to call the third party APIs here. So before going to call the third party API, what exchange method requires? Okay, what all the parameters or what all the attributes you need to pass in the exchange method, that we need to discuss here. Okay, so if we'll go to the exchange method, let me try to go there, and let me try to go to first one. So here you can see it is we have to pass the URL of that particular third party API which you want to consume or which you want to integrate. We have to provide the method, which method uh, which HTTP method is for that particular API that you are going to consume. So in this case, if you'll go there to the JSON placeholder, let's say you are going to consume or integrate this post API, which is a get method. So you have to provide the method type here. Okay, the second parameter. Now you have to provide the HTTP entity. So what is HTTP entity? So HTTP entity can be request and response. That means in the HTTP entity, you have to provide the payload and header, and you will get the response out of that API which you are going to call. Okay, so in the HTTP entity, basically we pass the header and the payload, and then we have the response type. So whatever response that API is sending, you have to provide the class of that response. So here let's say we are going to call the get API, which is returning the list of hash map. So here you need to pass as a return type as a list of class. So everything will try to explain you when we are going to implement it. So this is about the exchange method. Now if we'll go there to the implementation here, we have to pass the URL first. So let me try to create the URL here. So let me try to use the string buffer here, or string builder you can say. Yeah, equal to new string builder, and first of all let me try to create a base URL here. So let's say string base URL equal to, so what is the base URL? If you'll go to the browser, you will find this is the base URL. If you'll go to the second tab, you can see this is the base URL, and after that we have inserted the post. So let keep the base URL same, so that in other APIs also the base URL won't change. So that is why we are keeping the base URL as same. Now we have created the base URL, we can append the others expression of that URLs for the corresponding methods. So if you want to hit the get post by ID, then you have to insert the post and ID, after that this base URL. So we have just created the base URL. Now in the string builder, you can pass this base URL, and wherever needed, what you can do, you can append those things in the string builder here and create a base URL for you. So that is why I have created the string builder here. So I will show you what I'm telling now. So let's say mm, string builder dot append. So let's say you are going to hit the list of post APIs. So this API will look like base URL slash posts. So if we'll go there to the IntelliJ, here in the string builder we have passed the base URL. That means till here it has, and then we can append the post here. So you can directly append it, or you can use some enums here or some constant here. So let's say post equal to something like post. So this will make your API independent. Okay, so you will avoid writing the same thing of more often. Okay, so that is why we are structuring it like this. So here let's say string URL equal to this dot to string. Okay, so what we are doing, let me try to put here something. Yeah, so what we are doing, we have created the base URL, and then we have converted that base URL, which is of a string type, to the string builder type, and we are passing this base URL here in the string builder. Now why we are using string builder, so that it will become more easy for us to create a required URL out of this base URL with help of this append method. So what we did, we have the base URL in the string builder, and then we have if you want to hit the post list of post API, then you directly can come here and append the post here, and then convert it to the string and use this URL to pass in the exchange method. So we have first argument ready. Now the second argument was HTTP method. Okay, so HTTP method in this case is the get method. So let me try to do like HTTP dot get. Sorry, it will recommend you. So yeah, you can see HTTP method dot get. And now what we need to pass, we need to pass the HTTP entity. So we need to create the HTTP entity. Okay, so you can come here and create the HTTP entity, and let's say its type is void, and come here HTTP entity equal to new HTTP. Okay, And here, okay, let me try to remove this void here. So here in the HTTP entity, you need to pass the header and the payload. So in this case, we are going to hit the get API. So we need not to pass a payload here. So we need to pass the header in this HTTP entity. So how we can create the header? So let me try to show you. So we'll create one method, and that method will be returning the HTTP headers for us. And inside the HTTP headers, we can set the return type and like what is the return type of this method would be. So everything we can set there in the HTTP header. And if you want to provide the token for the authentication, you can set that token to the HTTP header. So everything you can do, you can explore what all the things you can pass to the HTTP headers. Here simply we are just going to pass the return type and required things. Okay, so let me try to show you those things. So how it would look like, just let me try to create it. So here let me try to create one method, HTTP header, and return type is HTTP header, method name is HTTP header, or you can say something like get HTTP header. Let's say this is a private method, and we are creating an instance of the HTTP headers here. And then in the HTTP headers, we are just setting the set accept, and here we are passing the arrays dot as list. Okay, and inside the as list you need to pass the media type. So the media type you can pass according to your application. So here we are going to pass the media type as application JSON. So just pass the media type dot application JSON. Let me try to pass the application JSON here. And similarly you have to set the content as well. So HTTP headers dot set content, and let me try to remove this arrays list, and here the media type would be application JSON 2. Okay, and now we have to return the headers out of this, and this headers method we can directly call inside the HTTP entity, and yeah, we are good. So this HTTP entity we need to pass inside the exchange, and then we have to pass the fourth parameter, which would be the return type, and here in this case the return type is list. So we have to pass the list dot class, and we are good. Okay, so just let me try, give me some time, I need to put the charger in. So just give me some time. So yeah, I'm good. So you can see we are getting this error while returning the response. So directly we cannot return the response out of this method. So we need to create one variable. Let's say I just want to create the variable called response, and there I just want to hold the response of this method, which is REST template exchange method. And now I will extract out the body of this response. So let me try to correct myself. It would be response. And what I will do, what I did, I just call the exchange method, provided the URL, method type, HTTP entity, and the list, which is the return type. And we have catched the response in the variable called response, and then we have to extract out the body of this response and then return it. So let me try to do that. Return response dot get body. Okay, so we are good now. Now let me try to make this application up and try to hit the, okay, so we have not created the controller yet. So how we can hit the API? We cannot hit it, right? So You can see our application is up and it is up on the port number 8080. Let me try to create a package for the controller, and then I will try to create the controller which can consume this method, which is getPost method. So let me try to go there and create a package called controller, and here let me try to create the post controller. Okay, and let me try to annotate this with @rest controller, and let's say request mapping as well, and in the mapping let me try to put as API, something like that. Okay, and this is a get API, right? So let me try to create a get mapping here, and let's say posts. Okay, or you can say get post. Okay, let me try to create the method, and the method return type is list of map of string comma object, and let's say get all posts. Okay, and here we need to call the method inside the post service implementation class. So let me try to import the map and the list here. So how we can call the post service implementation method, which is get post method inside the controller? So we need to auto wire the post service here. So let me try to do that. Auto wire private post service, and using this reference we can call the method. So dot get post, and then simply return it. Okay, so we are good now. So let me try to explain you the whole flow first, and then we'll try to run this application and hit the API. So what we are doing, we have created one post service interface where we have created one method which is returning the list of map, and which is the method name is get post. If you'll go to the implementation of this method in the post service implementation class, which is extending the post service interface, so we here we have created one method, sorry, we have overridden that get post method, and inside that method we have created the entity reference. In the entity reference we are passing the headers, and we can pass the payload, but this is the get method, so we are not passing the payload here. How we have created the HTTP entity? So you can see we have created this get HTTP headers method which is returning the HTTP headers, and in the HTTP headers we are like we have created one reference of the HTTP headers. We are setting the accept and content type, and then returning the HTTP headers. That HTTP method we have called here in the, or we have passed here in the HTTP entity, and the same HTTP entity we have to pass here in the exchange method, which we are calling from the REST template. So I already have explained you about the exchange method. In the exchange method we have to pass the URL, we have to pass the method type, we have to pass the entity, and we have to pass the return type of this response. Okay, we are catching this response in a variable called response, and then extracting out the body out of it, and then returning it. And finally we are calling this get post method inside the controller that we have created here. Okay, so now let me try to run this application and try to hit the get post API and then see. So the class level mapping is API, and the method that you are going to hit is get post. So go to the postman, and here let me try to create one new folder. Okay, let me try to create one new folder first, and then there I will try to keep it. So yeah, Spring Boot integrated API, third party API. So here we'll try to create the APIs that we have created in the Spring Boot application. So if we'll go there, let me try to create a request. And yeah, our application is up locally, so it would be http localhost, and then 8080 is the port where our application is up. The class level mapping is API, and then we have to pass the method level mapping, which is get post, I think. Yeah, get post. So we are good now, and let me try to hit this, and here we go. In the response we are able to get all the list of post. Okay, you can see this. That means we have successfully integrated the post API in our Spring Boot application. Now one by one we'll try to integrate all others APIs. Okay, so this others APIs are get post by ID, insert post, update post, and delete post. So yeah, the one by one we'll try to integrate the other APIs as well. Okay, so let me try to go to the IntelliJ and try to create the methods for the get post by ID, and then we'll try to create the implementation of that method, and then we'll try to create the APIs for this and then hit it. So let me try to go to the post service interface. And so first of all, if you'll go to the browser and if you'll go there to the JSON placeholder, and if you'll try to hit the get post by ID API, you can see the response is of JSON type, or you can say of map type. So similarly, you have to create a response or return type of the method here. So let's say it is map of string comma object, and let's say the method name is get post by ID, and here we need to pass the ID as a path variable. Okay, so let me try to go to the implementation of it. Coming here, uh, let me try to implement the method, and yeah, we have implemented it. Now let me try to copy paste the whole thing that I have created for the ever method. So and then we'll make the changes according to our requirement. Okay, so here what we have created the HTTP entity, we are passing the headers, and then we have to make the URL. So in the URL, we have to pass the ID as well, right? So till here we have till in the string builder we have the base URL, and then we are appending the post here. Now we have to pass the ID as well. So let me try to append the ID as well. So just do something like this, and then I think ID would be fine or not, and then do the to string. I think it will take so the URL would be like base URL slash post. If you'll go to the post, you can see the post and then slash ID. Okay, or what you can do, you can create a constant here, and let me try to do that. Get something like post by ID, and here let's say it would be like forward slash post forward slash. Okay, and directly what you can do, you can use this in the method, and you can remove this forward slash and directly pass the ID here. So your URL will be completed. Now you have passed the URL, and the method type is get only, and we have passed the entity as well, and this time the return type is of map, not the list, right? And what we are doing, we are just catching those response in a variable called response, and then extracting out the body of this response and then returning it. Okay, so we are good now. Now let me try to go to the post controller and try to create a get mapping for this. Okay, so paste it here, and let's say get post by ID, and we need to pass the ID here. So I'm just going to pass the ID as a path variable. Okay, so go to the path variable int ID, and let me try to call the method here. So get post by id, and you have to pass the id here, and the return type would be not list of map, it would be map. Okay, so we are good now. Now let me try to run this application, and then just copy this, go to the postman and create one new request. Save this request first. Get posts. Now let me try to duplicate this by id, the same thing, and then we have to pass the id. I think the same thing is there, right? Okay, no, it is get post by id, and then you have to pass the id. So just make sure your url is correct and just hit it now. And here we go, we are able to find out, or we are able to fetch the user id or the id one record. Okay, so that is, it's working fine as well. Similarly, we have to implement the insert, update and delete. So let me try to go to the first of all, what is the return type of the insert? Okay, so if we'll go to the postman, we here we have already access those apis here, you can see, right? So the return type of the post method is a hash map itself, right? Similarly, for the update also, it is a json, or you can say map, and for delete it is returning a map, but the map is entity, sorry, empty. So all the return type are map. So let me try to go to the IntelliJ and try to create a method for consuming the or integrating the insert API or post API, that you can say. So go to the IntelliJ and go to the post service, and let me try to create a method here, and the method name, let's say insert post, post something like that, and we need not to pass any id, right? We have to pass the payload if you want to insert that uh, post. So you can see this is the post method, and the url would be base url slash post, and in the payload you have to pass the particular post that you want to insert. So you can see, if you go to the postman, you can see here we have passed this as a request body or as a payload. So you have to pass this thing. So go to the IntelliJ, and here we need to pass a map. So this is a payload for us. So the payload is of type map, and map of a string object. Let's say the name is payload. Okay, and go to the post service implementation class. Let me try to implement the method here and override that. So we have this insert method now, and the same thing we have to do, we have to create the http entity, and we have to create the url, and then we have to pass those things in the exchange method. So copy this whole thing, paste it here, and according to our requirement we'll change it. Okay, so what we are doing, we have to pass this payload. Okay, so previously I have told you that this is http entity, we can pass the headers as well as the payload. Okay, so here you can see in the http entity we already have passed the headers, and we are passing the payload as well. Okay, and when we are passing the payload, you have to change the return type of this http entity. So the return type would be of map. Okay, so we are good. Now we have to make the url. So how our url will be looking like? So if we'll go to the json placeholder for the post, url is base url slash post, but the method type is post, right, not get. So here what you can do, you can append the post, and let me try to remove this id from here, and then to string, so base url slash post, and then we are converting it in the string. So we are good now. We are passing the URL, and here in this time the method type would be post. We are passing the HTTP entity. Inside the HTTP entity we are passing the payload and the headers, and the return type is of map type, and then we are catching those things in a variable called response and then returning the body of the response. Now let me try to run this application. Okay, so we just forgot to create the API here, so let me try to create a post API here. So copy this, paste it here. Let's say it is a post mapping, and let's say insert post, something like that. Remove the ID, and here we have to pass the request body, and request body is of type map of string comma object, and its name would be payload. Okay, and let me try to call the method here. So it is insert post, and we have to pass the payload here. Okay, we are good now. So let me try to tell you the whole flow. We have created this API where we are passing the payload, and this payload will be coming from the client, or you can say postman. It is going inside the insert post method and going inside the implementation of it. In the implementation, we have created this HTTP entity where we are passing the payload and header, and we have created the URL. We are passing those things in the exchange, catching those response of the exchange in a variable called response, and getting the body out of it and then returning it. Okay, so we are good. Now let me try to run this application and try to hit the post API. So go to the controller, and the API would be insert post. Go to the postman. Let me try to create one request here, or you can duplicate this one and change it to the insert. Okay, let's say it would be a post type, and here what is the API? Go there, insert post, copy this, paste it here, go to the body, select raw text. It should be JSON, and here you have to provide the payload. So let me try to go to this earlier used payload, copy this thing and go to the insert post and paste it here. Okay, just save it. So we don't have the access to write or update or delete anything to the JSON placeholder. So it is returning a pseudo response for us. Okay, so that will get here. So you can see this is the API that we have created locally, and we are passing the payload here. And let me try to, so our application is up, I think. Yeah, let me try to hit it, and here we go. We are able to get the response. That means this post is created or is inserted in the background. Actually it is not being inserted, but we are getting this response, and yeah, it is inserted in the background or in the JSON placeholder, you can say. Because we don't have the write access or update access, that means it is not being inserted actually, but pseudo thing is that it is showing us as a response here. So that means our post API is also working fine. We have integrated the post API successfully as well. Okay, coming to the put API and delete API, let me try to implement them as well. So go to the IntelliJ, and similarly go to the post service and create, sorry, yeah, develop a method here which is update post. So when you are going to update the post, you have to pass the ID as well as the payload. Okay, so like which post you are going to update and with what details. So the details would be payload, and the with the ID we are going to fetch that particular post, and then we are going to update it. Okay, so go to the implementation of it, go to this, and let me try to implement this method here. If we'll go to the JSON placeholder, you can see in the put we are passing the ID as well. So that is why we are passing the ID here. So in the implementation, yeah, we have implemented this, or we have overridden this update post method. Now let me try to copy the things from above, paste it here, and change according to our requirement. So we have created the HTTP entity, we are passing the payload, and then we are passing the headers as well. And let me try to create the URL for us. So URL would be, let's say, post by ID, and then we have to pass the ID as well. So append. Now you will get it why I was using the string builder. So it will become more easy for us to create the URL according to our requirement, right? So that is why we can directly come here and append whatever thing is required. So we have created the URL, and the URL would be base URL slash post slash ID. So if you go to this post by ID, you can see this. It is slash post slash post like forward slash post forward slash, and then we are passing the ID here. Okay, converting it to the string, and now we have to pass the URL, and the method type this time would be put. Entity response is of map type, and we are like catching those response in a variable called response, and then getting the body out of it and returning it. So this, no, sorry, it was for put, it was for insert post. I just changed it by mistake. So this is the update post. Here we are passing the, like, the URL is correct, and the method type would be put. Return type is map itself. We are catching those thing in a response, and then getting the body out of it and returning it. So we are good now. Now let me try to run this application. Okay, so before running this application, you have to create the API for it, right? So just copy this and paste it here. This time it is a put API, and let's say update post, and you have to pass the ID as well in a path variable, and we have to pass the payload as well as the ID. So let's say ID I'm passing as a path variable. Okay, and the method was update post. We have to pass the ID, sorry, we have to pass the payload as well as ID. Okay, so let me try to change the name of this method to update post, and this would be insert post, get post by ID. We were not getting any error because the mapping were different for all of them, right? So that is why we are not getting the error, as our method name was same. So we have created this update post method as well, or API as well. So now let me try to run it and copy this, go to the postman, try to create a new request which would be of put type. So just update it of put type, and here it would be update post, and we have to pass the ID, go to the body, and let's say the body is this is the payload for us. And yeah, now let me try to hit it, and here we go. We are getting the response, and the status is 200. That means put API is also working fine. Just save it. Now let me try to go to the IntelliJ and try to create the API for the delete, or try to integrate the delete API, you can say. So come here and let me try to copy this whole thing again and create a method for the delete as well. So let's say delete post, and the post we are going to delete by ID. Okay, so we need to pass the ID as well. Go to the post service implementation. We have to implement the method. So just implement the method here, which is delete post method. And the same thing we need to do, we have to just copy the whole thing, paste it here. This time we are not passing the payload, we have to pass the ID, and that ID we have to pass in the URL. Okay, so that we did already, we did here. So if you'll go there to the JSON placeholder, you can see the URL for delete is base URL slash post slash ID. Okay, the same thing we are doing here, base URL slash post slash ID, converting it to the string and passing the URL, and this time the method would be of delete. HTTP entity we are passing here, and the return type is map.class. Okay, so we are good now. Now let me try to run this. Okay, sorry, before running it, every time I'm forgetting to create the API here. So just copy this thing and try to create the API here. So just, it would be delete API or delete mapping, you can say. Let's say delete posts. We have to pass the ID as a path variable. Let's say method name is delete post, something like posts. We don't have to pass the payload, we have to pass the ID only. Remove it, and the method is delete, right? Delete post. So we are good now. Just run this application and copy this URL, go to the postman and try to duplicate it. Come here, name it like delete posts. Okay, and just we have to pass the mapping here, and the method type would be of delete, and then simply hit it. And here we go, the status is 200 and we are getting nothing here. That means this post is deleted from the backend. So all the APIs are successfully integrated in the Spring Boot application, and this is the standard way of doing those things. Okay, so this is about the video, guys. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel